Well, I try to answer at least what half of these questions posed by you now and a few others in the column that I published on the Credo. Today's Wednesday. It came out yesterday night, West Asia time. And before talking to you today, I was writing the follow up, which may be published, I hope, tonight, late at night, or tomorrow. And the title of the second column, I think, will tell most of us what's going on. It's Death of a Nation, essentially, and the vultures preying on the carcass of Syria, which is what's happening. It's one of the most absolutely terrifying, horrifying episodes in modern history. I'm trying to follow practically on real time. We have good sources in Syria, Lebanon. I'm also monitoring what the Russians are saying about it. But the Russians, of course, are focused on Tartus and Latakia, essentially. No? And of course, what's going on in the north and northeast with Americano Kurds, no? The Americano Kurds and their Rojava communist secular project clashing, and some of them being exterminated by different bands of Salafi jihadis, the Black Flags. So this is it's vultures all over, Nima and our audience, and it's absolutely horrifying. When I was writing the column this morning, I was trying not to go too dark into episodes, but basically trying to offer a big picture of scorpions turning on each other everywhere, different Kurdish factions, some more supported by the Americans than others, the different bands of Salafi jihadis, black flags that are in the north and the northeast. And they are trying to take over everything because basically, don't forget, this is the proxy army of the Turkish intel, essentially. So we have a conflict of NATO against NATO in the north and northeast. NATO American side, NATO Turkish side, and and these proxies are now exterminating each other now. So we have some of these massacres, we have some echoes about it, but the situation on the ground must be even more horrifying than the leaks are telling us. And this is evolving in parallel to massacres now happening in Damascus itself. They are now intimidating Christians, Shiites, Alawites, to the point of they are HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, they are stopping people in the streets of Damascus and asking, are you a true Muslim? Meaning Sunni, hardcore Sunni. If you are Shiite, you could be in trouble. It's no wonder that masses of Shiites fled Syria already, most of them to Lebanon, of course. I would say that most of them crossed legally, but many of them crossed illegally any way they could to leave Syria. Some of the Westerners that we know that lived in Damascus, they left on Sunday already. They abandoned everything that they had in Damascus. There are a lot of Westerners and Christians living in the old city of Damascus, which is, of course, that absolute marvel. They left everything, of course, and the purges already started, and this is just the beginning. We have no idea how horrible this is going to be. So it's not scorpions in a bottle. It's a bunch of scorpions that are already outside the bottle, around the bottle, and going everywhere, from Western Syria to north and northeast. And what we are seeing in parallel to all that, without a peep from the collective West, European Union, all these woke idiots, land grabbing and an Israeli invasion, de facto invasion of southern Syria. These people are now, according to different witnesses, between 20 to 15 to 10 kilometers south of Damascus already. Israeli tanks. They are occupying the countryside south of Damascus. And we have their leader, which should be languishing in jail by now, even before the end of this bloody trial. Hopefully not a kangaroo court, but it's probably a kangaroo court, saying that the Golan is irrevocably part of Israel. So they just annexed the Golan, just like that, and without a peep from the collective West. So, in terms of lawlessness and anarchy, we are not even able to quantify how absolutely desperate the situation is. And it's just the beginning, Nima. This is only 3 days after the fall of Damascus on Sunday. So, no wonder. Now, yesterday I was at the Institut du Monde Arabe here in Paris, which is one of the biggest government financed centers of study of Arab civilizations. They have a wonderful exhibition on Baghdad, for instance. I talked to some people. Jacques Lang, the president, came by when I was writing something at the restaurant upstairs. When we said hello and all that. He was smiling. I was almost asking, what are you smiling about? There's nothing to smile about at the moment, you know. So I got this outstanding book, Christians of the East, Christians of the Orient. And in this book, I'll try to publish some of the icons in my Telegram channels. You have Aleppo icons from the 16th century. Stuff that's absolutely extraordinary. We can imagine what's going to happen, not only to the remaining icons in Syria, but with Syrian Christians that have not managed to escape from Syria, because the purge is all across the spectrum. It's everybody that is not a black flag, essentially. So there's nothing to smile about, Nima, and all of you. It's really, really, really dark, everything. And it gets even darker when we think that this is exactly what these people who have been praying for the fall of the dictator for the past 30 years, this is exactly what they wanted. So they had no compunctions to use an army of black flags to get what they're getting this week. So they're still gloating. From Washington to Brussels and the European capitals here, the media here, they're going crazy. Repainting the road to Damascus converted head shopper, Jolani, as the new leader with a nice haircut, with the Zelensky suit. So there are elements of farce in the middle of this tragedy. There are tragicomic elements, surrealist elements. But the whole spectacle is toxic, extremely disgusting, and for all of us in the global majority, extremely sad.
I remember 6 years ago, I talked with a dentist from Libya here in Brazil. He lives in
Yes.
Brazil. In those days, he was living in Brazil.
Uh-huh.
He said that in those days that the United States tried to overthrow and remove Gaddafi from power, they were so excited.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't end well for them. He was so much disappointed with the situation, and he said under Gaddafi the situation was much better than what they had in those days. And the situation didn't get better since those days, and it's getting even worse in Libya.
Mm-hmm.
You have the situation in Libya, you have the situation in Iraq, but in my opinion, the situation in Syria is totally different from these two countries, because even the situation, because of the countries that are living at the borders of this country.
Mhm.
You have Turkey, you have Israel, Lebanon, and you have the presence of the United States. That's the problem that they're facing right now in Syria. Everybody wants a part of Syria.
Yes.
And this is the problem. I think that at least in Iraq, we didn't have this sort of problem because Iran wanted to have some sort of stability in Iraq. They tried to do everything to help Iraqis, but it's not the case for Syria. And Syria is just getting down. The dark days are just ahead of us.
Mhm.
We're not seeing right now what's going to happen to Syria. How do you see the future of Syria in that term, in the term of the countries on the borders of on the border of Syria and the way that they're behaving right now?
Well, I try to put it in a very, very concise way in the title of my next column. We have the vultures feeding on the carcass of a dead nation, essentially. Syria, as we know it, is dead and buried. What's going to come next, especially in this next 2 to 3 months, can be something absolutely, truly horrifying. For the moment, what we see on the ground already, lightning fast already, is three powers that are dividing Syria among themselves. The borders are still fluid and they will remain fluid for a while. But basically, northeast and east American. And that will continue. Stealing oil will continue, stealing wheat will continue. It's going to be a sort of American protectorate in the east, essentially. North, Turkey. Erdogan and Turkish military and Turkish intelligence, they want this sort of, they call it a buffer zone of 30 kilometers. Bullshit. They want to incorporate the whole of north and north, as far as a little bit of northeast Syria, as much as they can. And this should become Turkish land. And the subtitle of this tragedy: kill as many Kurds as possible, or intimidated to the point of they won't be able to do anything, and demilitarize them as well. So this Kurdish project of a communist secular state, Rojava style, is doomed from the point of view of Ankara, of course. And on the south, we're going to have Israel. In fact, we already have. Israel took over the demilitarized part of the Golan, which obviously the UN, it's not even forces. I visited this area years ago. There are a few UN mini forts and compounds and all that, but that's it. With very, very few UN peacekeepers. And okay, this is gone. This is over. Israel never turned it back to the UN. The UN has been saying that the Golan is illegally part of Israel since post-1967 war. Israel didn't do anything about it. On the contrary, they started to colonize virtually all of the Golan, and now they own the whole of the Golan. And there's nothing that anybody in the world will do to extract it from them apart from a strike on Tel Aviv, which is not going to happen anytime soon. And then the key part, which goes from a greater Idlibistan, Aleppo, and then through Hama and Homs all the way to Damascus. Let's say the center west. And of course, don't forget Latakia, which is the wealthiest province of Syria. This would be, and already is a mix of all three, the Caliphate of Al-Sham, the Caliphate of the Levant, whose leader, as we all know, is the reconverted head chopper, Jolani, sold to the West as a repentant jihad. And now he's woke. So European Union, European capitals, Washington, everybody. He's the new dog. New haircut, Zelensky suit, everything. So as a PR operation, something fascinating. Tawdry, stupid, cheap. We all know how it works. But it is working, at least for the moment. And even more, he won't be the caliph starting this week, like if he is a reincarnation of al-Baghdadi in Mosul when he went to the Umayyad Mosque on Sunday. When I saw the images, of course, our first instinct is, yeah, this guy's the new al-Baghdadi in Mosul in 2014. No, it was more complicated. He went to the Umayyad Mosque, which is one of the most venerable mosques in Islam. He struck a pose which was sort of conciliatory, not very aggressive. And then he directed a video that it's all over the net of some of his fighters talking to the camera, and he was conducting the speech outside. You can see that at the end of the video. Basically, they're saying, now that we conquered Damascus, we're going to conquer Jerusalem. Another PR op to fool the brainwashed, the idiots, the fifth columnists, the woke Europeans, you name it, that they are defending the lands of Islam. They're not. It's a bunch of mercenaries paid by Qatar and Turkey, regimented by Turkey, weapons paid by Qatar, in contact with CIA, MI6, so working for CIA and MI6 as patsies, and covertly working for Israel as well. So they're not going to attack Jerusalem, and they're not going to liberate Jerusalem. Obviously not. Only people with with an IQ that even room temperature is too high for them believe this nonsense. So the partition of Syria is already in effect only, 3 days after the fall of Damascus. So it's going to get much, much worse. And these lines are going to be very fluid. We're going to have more massacres in the north and the northeast. They are already going on. We're going to see purges in the western part of Syria, the developed part of Syria. They are HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, they are already in Latakia province. We have no idea what could happen next to the Alawites in this area, especially because they are wealthy, they have property, and guess what could happen with a black flag total takeover, which is already in effect, the initial stages. So everywhere we look in Syria, the situation is the darkest of dark, in fact, with no way out. Russia, for the moment, they have more important fish to fry. Like in January, signing the comprehensive strategic partnership with Iran. After that, we're going to see if things also move in Syria. Until then, nothing will move. We have all these Iranian officials going on the record. We use some of it in our column for the Cradle, and many other analysts are paying attention to what Iranian officials are saying, mostly on Iranian TV, about they tried everything to help Assad and it didn't work. So in the end, they washed their hands, like pilots, obviously. And of course, we still don't know what's going to happen to the completely cut off supply line for Hezbollah. So these problems will, next year, we're going to start to see where this thing is moving. For the moment, the overall picture, we have to come back to it, because as frightening and as a source of despair for all of us that it is the complete fragmentation and destruction of the Syrian state, including, in a matter of less than 48 hours, the total destruction of the Syrian military apparatus and what was left of the Syrian Arab army, including their Russian weapons. The weapons that Russia did not transfer to Khmeimim or to Latakia. So, this is the broader picture inside Syria, Nima, and all of you for the moment. That's it. It's dire. It's beyond our imagination.
In Iran, and as you've mentioned, Iranians and Russians are talking about that they were warning Assad from
Yes.
what's going on. But how, in your opinion, what was happening in the mind of Assad in those days? Because Iranians are talking about, Iranian general said that Assad said, if you come to support us, Israel may attack Syria.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem for Syria. Right now, Israel has destroyed everything in Syria. Do you think in his mind that he's gonna hand it over to these people and Israel just would do nothing about it and would just, because how is that going to be even understandable?
Nima, serious analysts don't do mind reading. Seriously, I say that seriously. We go for facts. And in my case, I started as a reporter on the ground when I was still living in the West. And when I moved to Asia 30 years ago, I learned everything that I could about Asia and Eurasia on the ground by actually going to all these places. Yesterday, I was looking at the footage that I shot in Syria before 9/11. I want to put some screenshots at least for for people to see, because people are going to be amazed by these are historic images. They were shot in 98, 99, 2000, when Syria was still at peace, organized, was a unified country, and you could go everywhere. I remember I rented a car in Damascus and I crossed Syria everywhere. I went to the Syria-Iraq border. When I saw the footage again, I said, I can't believe I was in this road, virtually 5 kilometers away from the Iraqi border. Nobody stopped me. It was in the middle of the desert. There were no Al-Qaedas, no terrorists, nothing. And today, this is the site of a rolling massacre. So, and this is not 25 years ago. It's not in historical terms, it's not too much. So we cannot even imagine what's going to happen in Syria next week. What we do know, Nima, and based especially on what Russian diplomats and Iranian officials and some Iranian military have been saying, some on the record, some of the record, is that they tried everything, but it looked like Assad had already made up his mind. And he didn't realize that he had been fooled by the promises of his new Arab buddies, especially MBZ in the Emirates. Basically, when Assad was trying to get closer to the Arab League and be embraced again as one of them, the people who betrayed them in the past, of course, they said, okay, you're back, you're one of us again, but there is a very, very if. You have to sever your ties with Hezbollah and Iran. So we can say that for the past few months, Assad was working on it. And I'm sure, of course, the Iranians are too sophisticated to say this bluntly, out loud, directly. But when you examine what they are saying, more or less, you can imply that they knew that Assad was moving towards the Arab League, and especially towards Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. So, and this, since that famous warning by Ayatollah Khamenei in June, that's a long time ago, when he told Assad directly, look, something is brewing over there in the north, be careful. He didn't pay attention. 2 months ago, in October, Iranians told Assad directly once again, look, there's going to be something coming out of Idlib. Be careful. He did nothing. And of course, once again, we have to repeat. I talk about this with Judge Knapp, and it's important to talk to you, Nima, and to our audience as well. The famous November 29 visit of Assad to Moscow. They went on the 27th. There was a meeting on the 28th. 29 was the the final one, and they came back to Damascus. He went with his family already on the 29th. And basically, he was asking for Russian help. And nothing came from Russia, obviously, because Russian intelligence already knew that something was afoot. They interpreted two ways. This will be lethal for Assad and for the Syrian Arab army. They are not equipped to deal with that unless we help them again. And this can be a trap for us to divert our attention from Ukraine to Syria all over again. So the Russian interpretation was clinical. Of course, you won't get that from the Russian Ministry of Foreign Relations, that there was a rebuff of Assad. Of course, they are also too sophisticated for that. But it's implied on everything that happened afterwards. So Assad was stunned by what the Iranians were saying. He was stunned by what the Russians did not do. He did not convey this crucial information to his military leadership and to the security services. So they had to come to their own conclusions. And they did. And the proof is how the Syrian Arab army dissolved instantly. That's the proof. The only one who actually won a few mini battles and skirmishes during these 10 days before the fall of Damascus was General Sohail Hassan, which, by the way, asylum in Russia as well. The Russians gave asylum to Sohail Hassan. Why? Because he's the most competent Syrian general of modern Syria of the past 13, 14, 15, 20 years. He's now in Moscow. And obviously, the Russian Ministry of Defense can find how to how to profit from his knowledge in the near future. In Syria or even outside Syria, but probably in Syria later on. So the Russians are always looking the big picture, 5 chess moves ahead, right? So Assad had only a few days to finally make, let's say he made up his mind when he saw, the facts on the ground, and when directly from the Russians he got, no, now you're on your own. We tried everything, and we suggested everything that you should do: a political opening, talking to the, let's say, legitimate, or at least legalized opposition, opening up the country politically. You did nothing. And of course, reform, upgrade, modernize the Syrian Arab army. You didn't do it. So he had to pay the price by himself. Apparently, and this is apparently, there is a recording of Assad explaining to the Syrian population as a whole what happened and why he made this decision and why he fled the country. And this was apparently, once again, we have no confirmation from anywhere, especially, of course, with the fall of Damascus, this could never be broadcast. So, because, of course, from the point of view of the whole gang, Collective West, NATO Stun, Washington, Brussels, NATO, Turkey, military intelligence, Turkey, Israel, and all that, no, he has still to go, he will go to history as a traitor of his own people, abandon them at the last minute. Apparently, it's not so clear-cut. There is an explanation, and we'll never know. So we could count on Assad himself, if he's willing to do it, to release this recording, or from Moscow to make a broadcast to Syria, or to the whole global south explaining what he did. So this is up in the air still, But this is a very, very interesting twist, proving that this whole story is extremely murky. We can only guess about his motives, but there's no guessing in terms of how the Syrian military intelligence apparatus vanished during these 10 days before the fall of Damascus. Now, this is clear. right? And the Iranians offered a lot of very important information these past few days. And the Russians also did by not saying anything. That also implies a lot. And in terms, of course, of loyalty, you know that Putin values loyalty above everything. It's no wonder that the decision to grant asylum to Assad is a personal Putin decision. The decision to grant asylum to Suhail Hassan, the general, probably was a collective decision. And the Ministry of Defense probably picked up the phone. Gerasimov picked up the phone and told Putin, we need this guy here. He can tell us everything about everything in Syria on the ground. And he was our best general. That also makes sense. Well, this is the, let's say, a short introduction, Nima, to what could happen afterwards. Assad seems to be totally out of the picture. He wants to become an ophthalmologist again. He's with his family. The family is safe. He's starting a new life. He's going to use his foundation to dedicate himself to his chosen profession. And this is a closed chapter. What is not closed, of course, is the post-Assad, the aftermath, which starts now, and coming back to beginning our conversation, the darkest way possible.
I think many people are right now are thinking about the future of resistance and the future of Palestine and Hezbollah. In my opinion, what's going on right now, it doesn't matter if they cut the connection between Iran and Hezbollah, because the resistance exists because of the nature of the conflict in that region. It's not related to what Iran wants them to do.
True.
Iran is helping them, supporting them, but the resistance is because of the occupation, oppression coming from the occupation. And do you think that in the mind of those people who are now seeing the picture, Iran and Russia getting out of Syria, there is no Syrian government supporting Hezbollah, that many people are arguing right now that would be the end of resistance, that they can do whatever they want.
No.
It's unbelievable. It's impossible if they do think that way.
No, it's not Nima and all of us who have been to Beirut, talk to Hezbollah, let's say, leadership, went to their think tanks, went to southern Beirut. All of us who did that, we know that Hezbollah, it's not an immovable force. It's virtually an indestructible force with powers of regeneration, very well established in civilian terms and intellectually as well. They study history, they learn from history, they learn from resistant movements everywhere. They built very strong resistance movement in different levels, from civilian to military to guerrilla warfare. And they have an extraordinary ability of reconstituting and rejuvenating. So they will find solutions, of course. This is just the beginning. They had a huge blow, of course. They will recover. They had huge blows before, no problem. Just like I remember Vietnam all the time. The Viet Cong had mega blows from the hyperpower. They always recovered and rejuvenated. You know that Vietnamese tactics were studied in detail by Saddam's generals. They were also studied in detail by Hezbollah military people. Of course, they're studied in detail everywhere. They're an example for resistance all over the global south since the 60s. So they will recover. That's not a problem. And the axis of resistance as a whole, our reaction, most of us, analysts and general public, informed people on Sunday, was we were absolutely dejected. And many of us were thinking this is the end of the axis of resistance, or at least a mortal blow. Let's say it was a nearly mortal blow. This is early days. It's only a few days. They will recover. They will reorganize. Iraq has to be, and Iraq, the people of Hashd al-Shabi especially, which I had the honor to meet inside the green zone, in a cell inside the green zone. I had the pleasure to meet them and talk to them, including Mohandes, who was assassinated later alongside General Soleimani and all that. It's the Iraqi equivalent of Hezbollah, and they learned a lot from Hezbollah as well. They are perfectly aware of the stakes, and they are also aware that Iraq is next after the fall of Syria. It's no wonder that now they are already. I think the first one who put this on the record was Narishkin, SVR, Russian Foreign Intel. 11,000 jihadis are being trained to get inside Iraq to destabilize it, especially the north, and especially Mosul again. So we're going to have a nice style revival of Salafi jihadist black flags trying to reconquer Mosul 10 years later. So they are prepared. They are totally prepared. And don't forget that the people who actually liberated Mosul was Hashd al-Shabi. People in the West have no clue about that. So these are the true liberators of Mosul from ISIS. So if ISIS, HTS, this congregation of black flags try again, Hashd al-Shabi, they are ready. So, the reconstitution of the axis of resistance is going to take time. It's a process that will go throughout 2025, but it's inevitable. And for the moment, it's good to have the NATO stun complex and the NATO stun Israel combo gloating about their enormous tactical victory for the moment. Yes, it is for the moment, but it's not going to last forever. It's not going to probably it's not going to last too long. There will be blowback, and they have no idea where the blowback is coming from and in what form, which makes it even better. The problem is from the point of view of people who live in Syria and the different communities they lived in and mostly continue to live in multi-ethnic Syria, is the total disaggregation and destruction of a nation. How they're going to reorganize themselves and pick up themselves from this total horror to start to rebuild their country, especially in a situation where the country is divided among foreign powers, essentially, especially the three major ones, US, Israel, and Turkey. But it's too early to pose this question, Nima, in our audience. Of course, this is a question for all of us long term. How Syria will revive itself. And this will depend on political organization of Syrians and cross-cultural, cross-ethnic reorganization in Syria. Emergence of new political leadership, how they're going to deal with the fact that after March, anything could happen, because this guy was Mohammed al-Bashir, who was appointed to be the leader of the interim government. This guy's not going to last long. And after March, it's quite possible that Jolani will organize a sort of coup and take over as the Caliph of Al-Sham. This is a very, very possible scenario. Anything can happen. And obviously now, all the gigantic problems of reorganizing in Syria, the responsibility is US, NATO stun, and Israel. Can they cope with that? Of course not. They have no idea about nation rebuilding. The only thing that they do, which is the ethos of the imperial hegemonic system, is to destroy. It's divide and rule, bomb, destroy, sanction, shatter nations. It's the only thing they do. So Syria could possibly remain a black void for a long time, just like Libya has been a black void for a long time. And this is their preferred scenario. And this is what is so worrying from the point of view of Syrians themselves. What are they going to do to try to revert the situation? Still early days, but they will do it. And when you look at the history of Syria, they survived everything. It's absolutely outstanding. I was reading about, do you know that the term Christian, Christianos, from the Greek, guess where this term was born, Nima. Antioch. Which was Antioch? Was the most important city of the Eastern Roman Empire in Syria. So revival is inscribed in the Syrian psyche. They will rebound. For the moment, they are at the bottom of the pit in historical cultural terms, facing a purge, facing the destruction of their nation, and among other things, that's why they deserve the support of all of us across the global majority, any way we can, to help them pick up the pieces and restart their nation.
Yeah. We had Ayatollah Khamenei today talking about these things.
By the way, tell me, Nima, what did he say? I was writing, so I didn't follow.
He said the Syrian youth will ultimately rise to meet this challenge, to take the
It's
field
what we're
and
discussing now.
bring everything back in the hand of people. And he said our intelligence agencies provided warning to Syrian officials months ago about the
Correct.
enemy plot, and they knew about everything. They didn't. It wasn't a surprise for Iranians, as he
Yes,
mentioned in this talk.
correct.
And he added that Hezbollah, Hamas, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and other Palestinian factions have remained steadfast despite pressure and conspiracies. Hezbollah's iron fist has proven stronger despite facing unprecedented strikes in history. And the crimes of the entity in Gaza, the West Bank, and Lebanon do not signify victory for it at all.
Mm.
And they don't they know what has happened. They're just citing what has happened in Lebanon and what's going on in Syria, but they know how powerful they are right now, and how all of these things that are happening are making these people even stronger in their goals, in their objectives.
Um, Nima, I'm gonna be. A lot of people are gonna hate this, but we have to say something extremely important. Um, Ayatollah Khamenei forgot about Hamas. You know what Hamas said early this week, no? That they support the takeover of Damascus by the Black Flags. This is not good in any terms. We know why they said that. Hamas is Muslim Brotherhood. This means Hamas is Turkey and Qatar. So obviously, Turkey and Qatar are supporting the Black Flags taking over Damascus. So how Iran is going to deal with that? This is extremely serious. Of course, Khamenei is a fine strategist. He obviously knows that, and he obviously cannot expose this nakedly in public. But in the back channels, this will be discussed seriously between Hamas and the leadership in Tehran. It's not good at all for anybody. You cannot possibly support a bunch of Salafi jihadists taking over a crucial battleground state, cultural apex, one of the cradles of civilization. No, there's no way out for that. So
It seems that in their mind they're just reevaluating, reassessing what has happened in Syria. They may still believe that they can have some sort of support coming from these people, which I do believe that wouldn't be the case for
no,
these.
no, it won't. But of course, we all trust Khamenei's fine strategic mind. I'm sure he has a plan B for that.
Yeah. But right now, Pepe, do you think that the relationship between Iran and Russia and the way that they're witnessing? Yes, I talked with Professor Marandi right
Yes.
after this happening in Syria. He said that the government in Iran, the way that they're seeing the actions on the part of Erdogan and Turkey, It's unbelievable. They knew what's going on, but
Mm,
the way that Turkey is supporting this and just breaking everything between Turkey and Iran and Russia on the other side, it was somehow surprising for them. And when you look at the note and Alexander Dugin on X, he published that Turkey betrayed Russia and Iran,
mhm.
and the Kemal's era is over. They're not going to end well with this attitude that they're practicing right now.
Yes, it's much more nuanced than that. We could see the tension at the Doha meeting. I'm sure all of you saw the roundtable in Doha that decided the fate of Syria, essentially. We had Lavrov sitting over here, Hakan Fidan sitting on the right, and Arakchi from Iran sitting on the left. Only the three of them on the table. And you could see by Lavrov's body language that it was a horror story, right? So the Russians and Iranians knew what the Turks were up to. Russian intelligence obviously knew the big contours of the greater Idlibistan operation, even before it happened. And the Iranians were alerting Assad and the Syrians for 2 months at least, practically nonstop. Look, this is going to happen. So they were not caught by surprise. So, but they had to deal with Erdogan. Is a complicated character, Nima. Wow, I'm always learning. I go to Istanbul often. Next month I'll be back in Istanbul again. I talk a lot with my Kemalist friends in Istanbul, very well informed, academics, scholars, etc. They are always, to a certain extent, dismissing Erdogan. He's illiterate. He doesn't read what he's saying. He doesn't even know how to read the Quran. He reads nothing in foreign languages. He's narrow-minded, but he's clever. He's smart. He's resilient, and he knows exactly what he wants. So, two of the very important things that he wanted, which in his mind he's accomplished this time: have direct or indirect control of Aleppo. Check. Deal a mortal blow to Kurds in Syria. Check. So these are the two most important things. So everything that we essentially theorize about the way he sees neo-Ottomanism, for him is a very practical matter. It's business. It's offering business opportunities to what we call the Gang of Five, the five big real estate speculation conglomerates that basically control everything in Turkey and control the AKP and control and rely on Erdogan personally. Turkish construction companies that we see in Uzbekistan, or as I saw it in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, for instance. So these are very down to earth practical matters. He's not an ideal. He cannot think in ideological or big picture Brzezinski style terms. No, not at all. So he was waiting for this moment, and he capitalized on it. And with the Turkish intelligence right behind it, very important, very interesting. His current foreign minister, which is, I respect this guy. He's not an idiot at all, Hakan Fidan. He's the former head of MIT, Turkish Intel. So, he's been following this whole process in terms of Turkish-Syrian relations. So from the point of view of Erdogan, he achieved what he wanted. So he wants to extract the maximum benefit of all that in commercial trading terms. For that, he had to betray two allies at the same time, which happened to be two top BRICS. And he's trying to get into BRICS. There will be consequences, BRICS style. Do Russia and Iran, not to mention China, will accept Turkey as a full member of BRICS? Forget it. BRICS partner, maybe, but with a reduced role in the sidelines. Maybe. But what he did to, let's say, reconquer NATO's confidence and support and interaction, okay, check. But he may have sacrificed his future in BRICS strategic, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, and as a major player in Eurasia, because he sidelined and antagonized and betrayed at the same time 3 top BRICS. Do you think China is happy with one of the possible corridors for the new Silk Roads now being in the possession of black flags, Salafi jihadis? The Chinese have been very circumspect so far. They only said that they expect a political leadership or a political solution for Syria, which doesn't say anything. So basically, this is a standard diplomatic lingo. I was heavily criticized because I posted that on X and Twitter, because most people didn't understand what I was trying to say. What I was trying to say is that the Chinese, they have their cards close to their chest, and they are not going to manifest their displeasure openly with Turkey. This is going to be done via diplomatic sources and probably via Iran and Russia. And of course, by the Chinese themselves talking to Ankara directly, because they consider Turkey a partner in the Belt and Road projects. So this complicates it horrendously, the whole BRICS New Silk Road long-term strategy. At the same time, and that makes it even more interesting, it could be perfect from the point of view of Russia and Iran, as they are consolidating the international north-south transportation corridor. Even if Syria would be outside of the whole thing, Turkey could be outside of the whole thing, because the corridor could ignore Turkey. The corridor will certainly incorporate Azerbaijan as a sideline, Azerbaijan, Iran, Kazakhstan as a sideline as well, because Kazakhstan is in the Caspian. So all the 5 Caspian littoral states will benefit from the north-south corridor, because it will cross the Caspian, but mostly Russia and Iran. From the point of view of the bases in Latakia and Hmyimim, Russia doesn't need them anymore. Hmyimim was a base basically to help Syria. That's it. Finished. And Latakia, they can find other ways to be present in the Eastern Mediterranean. And who says that Russia really needs the Eastern Mediterranean? They don't. They are concentrating on Persian Gulf, Sea of Oman, Indian Ocean. It's the international north-south transportation corridor, which nobody in the West among the leadership, they have no clue about it. They have no idea how it's going to be, and they have no idea that this is the new Suez Canal on steroids. And this means St. Petersburg, Astrakhan, across the Caspian, Tehran, Persian Gulf, all the way Indian Ocean to Mumbai, India. And it's a BRICS connectivity corridor. And politically, totally isolated from the West. They don't need the West for anything. So if the Russians decide, okay, we need a naval base somewhere else, well, they have many options. It could be Algeria. Algeria is a BRICS partner. It could be Egypt. Egypt is a BRICS member. Libya, too complicated. It could be the Persian Gulf. Why not? They're going to have next month a comprehensive strategic partnership in every domain. The Russians can say, look, can we share a naval base with you in the Persian Gulf? The Iranians are going to say, no problem. This is what I heard from Iranians last year in Moscow, Nima, directly. The Russians told us, maybe if we never, the Iranians said, whatever you ask, it's yours. This is the level of the strategic partnership, and it will be inscribed when on January 25th in Moscow, Pezeshkian and Putin will sign the comprehensive strategic partnership. Everything is on the table. Everything is possible. So, when you look at the possible auspicious aspects of what could be ahead for Russia and Iran, Turkey is a minor player and can be a minor player. And the Sultan will come begging in Moscow to Putin for extra favors, energy, nuclear power plants, more tourism, you name it. Turkey depends on Russia on several levels. Influx of Russian tourists, money, investments, etc. Turkey is the bridge between Russia and the West, but Russia can invest more in other bridges. For instance, Kazakhstan. And the whole process, the de-dollarization long-term process within BRICS and all over Eurasia is conducted by Russia. So nothing's going to change from the point of they are thinking. Obviously, they were thinking ahead, and obviously they sacrificed a pawn. They knew that they had to sacrifice a pawn in this new great game, Syria. They will recover in many other positions they have on the chessboard because they always look at the chessboard as a big picture, which NATO stand, the collective West, and the US, they are incapable of looking at the chessboard as a whole. First of all, because they don't even understand what's happening in the chessboard. There you go.
The main concern, Pepe, right now in Syria, I think that the line that connects Iran to Russia and China is the combination of these people in Syria. We have Uyghurs, we have people from Dagestan, from Chechnya, we have people from Iran being part of this movement, ISIS and HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, whatever they call it. These are huge concerns for all of these countries in the long term. And right now, that's why I think that in the United States, maybe those policymakers in Israel, they're so happy. But I do believe that, like ISIS, if you remember, in those days, everybody was fighting ISIS. It wasn't just Iran, Russia, the United States. Even the United States knew that they were helping them. As Jake Sullivan was talking, Al Qaeda is on our side in Syria. But there were some, as it came to the Kurds, they were trying to help Kurds in that region. But at the end of the day, I think what's happening right now in Syria would be a huge concern for everybody. For everybody. Maybe they're feeling that they're winning right now, but at the end of the day, everybody's losing. And they have to take it seriously, because at the end of the day, as we know, the combination of forces in Syria is so important.
Of course, because now Syria is a Salafi jihadi central. And it's not only a region, it's not only a greater Idlibistan, a few pockets in the middle of the desert, middle of nowhere and all that. No, now it's a great deal of the country, if not 60 to 70% of the country now is Salafi jihadi central, is black flag territory with a bloody reconverted caliph emerging. How absolutely disgraceful and terrifying is that? The main problem, of course, is going to be for the collective West, but of course there will be problems for the BRICS and for Iran, Russia, and China. Did you see Uyghurs? Of course, all of you have already seen the Uyghurs at the Umayyad Mosque and other parts of proclaiming their allegiance to the new black flag government in Damascus. And of course, indirectly saying that they're going to liberate Turkestan from China. Obviously, Chinese intelligence, they're. Okay. And now we have all the faces, everybody. We're coming to get you. Even if you are in Syria, it doesn't matter. And the Russians know about the Dagestanis, about the Uzbeks, about the Tajiks, about the Chechens. Oh, wow. There's an army of
It's a huge concern for the
huge.
security.
There's an army of Central Asians and radicalized Uyghurs. And these Uyghurs, they didn't come from Xinjiang, Nima. They came from Turkey. They were living in Turkey, and they were doing the back and forth via Gaziantep. Everybody knows about this in Istanbul. You know, I saw Uyghurs in bloody Istanbul on the Asian side of Istanbul. You cross these people in the street eating a kebab. You know, so it's no mystery to anybody. So of course it's a source of because this destabilization can go anywhere depending on who's financing them and paying for their weapons. So it's I describe them in the recent past as a transnational army of bloody killers. This is a short definition of these people. It's a transnational army of bloody killers, and they sell themselves to the highest bidder. There you go. And wow, so expect serious mayhem all across the spectrum, including here in Europe. Depending on how they are financed, weaponized, and destabilized for whichever intel agency is coordinating the whole thing, they could be re-imported back to Europe to destabilize nodes across Europe. You know, it's not only CIA, MI6 that are behind these people. You know, it's MIT, it's sub-agencies, it's black agencies, black mini security corporations, anything. It's an absolute mess. And they can be instrumentalized easily. And when they are not, they turn against each other. Just exactly what is happening in parts of the north and the northeast. And soon will come to Damascus. Because some variants of HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, they are already pouncing over HTS. They say, look, we want a piece of the pie. All this thing that you're going to, if you don't, we're going to turn against you. So the possibility of mayhem ahead is, wow, cosmic. There are going to be incendiary repercussions all across the spectrum. Because exactly now we have a nation as Salafi Jihadi Central.
Yeah, we were talking about the risk of having a nuclear conflict, nuclear war between Russia and the West, or in the West Asia, in the Middle East. Right now, I think there is a nuclear bomb in Syria, and nobody knows when it's going to explode and how it's going to explode.
No,
and this is the disaster that we're witnessing. Yeah. Thank you so much. Muito obrigado, Pepe.
Obrigado, querido.
Grande prazer, como sempre.
Nossa, volta sempre o verso do Dylan para mim. Darkness darkness dawns at the break of noon. It's one of the most beautiful verses in the history of pop music, and it had to be Dylan, of course. It's always back in my mind. E agora a gente está vendo isso na nossa frente.
Exatamente.
Bom,
ninguém parece tem que considerar tudo isso. É difícil demais, mas
é difícil.
Tem que passar.
Sim. Bom, mas
obrigado. Tenha um bom dia aí.
Dedicado não só aos cristãos do Oriente, mas a todo o povo na Síria.
Exatamente.
Segurem-se, mas vocês têm capacidade de dar a volta por cima.
Tem tudo lá, tem tudo.
Tchau,
obrigado, Pepe.
Grande abraço. Obrigado.
Grande abraço.
Obrigado a vocês todos. Thank you all. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye-bye.